Hey guys, there's 3 floating cubes in the sky that are meant to be challenged mid to late game. I'm going to show you how to get in and out of each one quickly with all their loot at the start of the game. You'll also be completing them as well, so that's a bonus, I guess. There are no enemies inside. I think the challenge is supposed to be actually getting into them. All you need is a paraglider and access to one Skyview tower for each cube. If you saw my last video, you know how easy it is to unlock all the Skyview towers in a couple hours in one run. I'll start with the southern cube because it has the most loot and it's even easier than the others to get into. Fast travel to the Gerudo Canyon Skyview Tower and use it. Glide to the nearby ferry island and attach a rocket to the prepared glider. Then nest the second rocket loose in front of one of the fans. Activate the glider and quickly grab the loose rocket so it doesn't fly away. Stand on the right side of the glider to make it curve right towards the cube. Attach the second rocket and hit it when your batteries back up. If you have a rocket shield, you can equip it in case something goes wrong. I made the trip in this video with no extra stamina or tricks, just the supplies on the island. I didn't even need to paraglide. Touch the shrine to create a waypoint and touch the puzzle's glyph. It tells you need to complete the dungeon/maze down below before going in, so we'll just drop down to the end of the maze. Jump down and fall exactly here. It's the end of the maze and you'll completely bypass all the BS. Touch the shrine to create a fast travel spot and touch the glyph on the opposite side of the room to unlock the air cube. Fast travel back to the shrine at the air cube, touch the glyph, and go in. The puzzles require you to glide around with heavy air currents. You can easily do these puzzles as long as you don't forget about your stamina. Luckily, I've already mapped out the treasure and mission objectives in all 3 cubes, so you don't have to scramble around wondering what's inside. There's 8 broad segments, and 7 of them have something for you. Lots of the traversal between segments in the cubes requires you to pay attention to entry points that are either low or high if there isn't a full break in the wall, so try to keep an eye on the lower portion of the maze. You can also get altitude by falling and starting to paraglide when you're close to the bottom of the maze. I'm not doing this in any order, and honestly I didn't really remember the mazes when recording, but it's really easy. Just look at your minimap. The main challenge is finding the chambers with treasure and mission objectives, but you have all that right here. The only real plan with this maze is to hit both areas in each quadrant before moving on, and eventually you'll complete the cube. It doesn't take too long, just watch your stamina. Once you hit the 4 mission objectives, the air current will increase and shoot you to the top of the maze. Hit the chest and touch the glyph. Now dive down to the ground maze again, this time diving through the center of it and into the red tube. I don't intend to spoil things for people, so I'll discuss the dungeon as is. Once you're nearing the bottom, start anticipating floor below you. There's a rotating light at the bottom that you can use to gauge your descent. And you'll also see the floor coming with faint warning because there's dim lights in the chamber that become visible when you're close. You can use bright bloom arrows to light your way. When you land, stay out of the inner chamber with the rotating light. These are the only enemies for all 3 cubes. There's 1 each and you have no reason to even approach them right now. Your goal is to run the perimeter and enter openings from there. Light your way around the perimeter and collect the pose as you go. Each chamber has a hidden opening near the ceiling. I tried using a rocket and failed to trigger the paraglider, so I just did it the old-fashioned way with 1 stamina bar. When you're in the upper chambers, don't ascend if you're avoiding spoilers. I freaked out when I accidentally ascended at one point in this run and was worried I'd have to redo the whole thing, but luckily you can cancel ascending. Between the air and ground cubes, you'll be collecting higher-end bows, swords, and spears. The damage gets as high as 45. Also, don't forget to collect the zoanite charges from the rusted statues. The openings to avoid are opposite bars on the outer wall. You can enter those 2 openings if you want to collect the zoanite charges from the rusted statues, just don't go into the pit. After you've done a circle, you're done with the puzzle cube and its corresponding maze and dungeon. All 3 cubes function the same. Air maze in the sky, connected to a maze dungeon below, and once you complete each air maze, the dungeon below opens its deep inner chamber. It doesn't matter which cube you go to next, they're both inferior to the first one since they don't have much loot in the dungeon below. To get to the northeast cube, fast travel to the Ullery Mountain Skyview Tower and use it. Glide to the small platform connected to the construct arena nearby. Add all spare batteries to the prepared flying machine and place it on the north side of the little island. Use it to fly to the ferry island on the way to the cube. Don't waste battery because this device has exactly enough juice to get you to the ferry island with not much to spare. Hold forward the entire way. When it gives out, glide the rest of the way. Your starting stamina bar works fine. Add all of the loose batteries to the flying machine here and take it to the cube. You'll gain more altitude as batteries drop off. This many batteries is heavy. Once you land, do the same thing as before. I'm not actually sure if you need to touch the glyph first, but I never tried to do this without it. Drop to the maze below exactly here. There's a hidden chest behind some brambles you need to clear on the way to the inner chamber. Get it if you want, then continue to the glyph and shrine. Touch both, then fast travel to the sky cube. This one's messier than the first, but here's the loot and objective. By the end of this maze, if you're doing this at the start of the game, you'll already be making hard choices of what to keep since you can't hold very many weapons. By the end of the 3 mazes, I was fully stacked and had to leave a few chests behind. Good thing everything breaks, right? Once you're done with this maze, fly to the top and touch the glyph. Drop down to the inner chamber of the ground maze and fall through the hole. There isn't much here besides a few pose and rusted statues for Zonite charges, as well as a single hidden chest with a Soldier 3 Reaper Zonite weapon that I didn't even have space for. One thing about this dungeon area is that there's a separate floor between the ground maze and the inner chasm. It's a massive empty room with several pools of gloom and a bunch of pillars coming down from the ceiling. There's one strong glue monster that pops up sometimes that you can fight if you're doing this endgame, but I wouldn't try to fight it early. To get to the 3rd cube, fast travel to the Typhlo Ruins Sky Tower and use it. Glide to the small island I'm showing, or the bigger island with the launcher below. You're way above the sky cube, so simply gliding there works fine. But since I promised to show how to do these at the start of the game, I'll show you how to launch a glider off a flat surface without a rocket. If you have a spare rocket, just add it to a fan glider and launch it in the direction of the cube. Launching without a rocket is hilarious, and that's what I'm going to show you. Build a fan glider and position it similarly to what I'm showing here, exactly on the edge of the island, preferably on a surface that isn't supporting the head of the glider. Your goal is to have the glider start falling off the edge when you place it, or when you trigger the fan. The key is to face the glider holding forward, and when it finally drops, Link treats it like a climbable wall. The only thing you have to do in this process is to be climbing the glider while it falls. It'll correct itself as it flies. You don't have to do anything else. It's actually kind of stupid how pointless it is to know how to do this, since rockets make it obsolete. But if you ever find yourself needing to launch a glider without a rocket, you can do it. Maybe speedrunners can make use of it somehow. Once you're airborne on the glider, just glide to the cube and drop to the platform with the shrine and glyph and do the things. Drop down to the maze below exactly here. This one's a little bit trickier because the entrance is raised off the ground, so approach it a bit more slowly. Burn the ice to clear the shrine and touch the glyph, then fast travel back up. This cube's easier than the last one, and here's the loot and mission objectives. I had a bit of trouble near the end because I didn't remember the central objective is accessible from the back. Once you're done, glide to the top and hit the chest and glyph to open the lower chamber in the dungeon maze below. Dive down and hit the hidden chest just below the opening to the inner chamber before diving all the way down. I actually don't see a point of going all the way down before late game because I didn't find any loot besides a few pose and rusted statues. Anyway, that's the 3 cubes completed with 0 buffs, magic, fancy tricks, or whatever. You can do all this literally the second you get the paraglider and access the relevant sky towers. I'll include a sped up version of the first cube run at the end of the video so you can see a start to finish run in case I forgot to mention something. Just remember that I don't have a mental map of the best routes for these mazes. I just went through them. I'm sure there's much better gamers than me out there that will make better videos showing specific pathways to take. As a final note, there's still loot in at least a few of the 9 areas I showed you. I explored the air mazes pretty thoroughly, but I think I remember a few chests and pathways, whereas I mostly explored the dead ends and chambers. I didn't show almost any of the loot in the ground mazes. My main interest in this game is breaking progression, and I wasn't able to travel through the gloom when I went through these. You need to be further in the game for that. There's also hidden areas in the mazes, and I only showed you the 2 that I found. There's probably more. I explored the underground dungeons pretty well, but I'm not saying that I found everything. Anyway, that's how to conquer the air cubes at the start of the game. Thanks for watching. Peace.